Well. It's Wednesday, June 28th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time for On the Hot Seat. And as usual, I have a fantastic guest who I shall introduce momentarily. It's not like a secret or anything, but I'd like to make a big dramatic entry here. First, FootballDiehards.com. It's a website. We appreciate you joining us here on our YouTube channel every Wednesday at this time and Saturdays at noon Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything live streams. Also appreciate you checking out all our shorts. We see you out there watching, and we're trying to deliver all the good content. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already. If you previously completed those YouTube tasks, you know the next step. Hit the like button. And feel free to dislike. Well, I will dislike us right now, so everyone feels good about that. Honest feedback is always wanted here at the Football Diehards channel. Questions, comments, suggestions, associated chicanery goes into the chat. As always, we'll work our way through all the questions. By we, I mean me, Bob Harris, and my guest. Today's guest is fantastic. I'm super excited to have her on. You know her from Fade the Noise Fantasy, and soon to be knowing her from more things. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Lauren Carpenter, welcome to the show, Lauren. How are you today?
I am so great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been kind of a crazy day, so that's why my hair looks crazy. It is the external manifestation of my internal turmoil. So you guys all get to experience it. This is not going to stay down the whole show. I'm going to be putting it up. It's too hot.
They're all going to love it. And yes, you've had quite the exciting day. Hello, Dame. Hello, Robert. Hello, Brian. Hello, Andrea. Thanks, Mr. Scampers, for coming. Appreciate everyone showing up. Always have a good time here. Again, eager to have your questions. And so before we get into the meat and taters of this whole thing, let's discuss the real news here. What's going to be happening Saturday, July, is it 8th or 9th? Is it my mind is, it's the 8th of July. Tell me what's happening then.
It is the 8th of July. So crazy. So you're going to hear my dulcet tones on Sirius XM radio starting July 8th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I like to say Eastern Standard Time just because. But so our show, ours, Jake Seeley and Chris Meany, myself, it's actually Jake Seeley's show, but I take over because I want to and say, it's my show. I'm kidding. It's not. It's our show. And I was picked up by Sirius XM via FTN Fantasy. So it's going to be a ton of fun. It's wild. So yeah, every Saturday starting July 8th.
I'm stoked. Welcome to the network, by the way. It's been,
Thank you.
You're going to love it. And also, I'm a huge fan of Jake Seeley. By the way, Jake Seeley will be on the Football Diehards program on that very network this Saturday night to further pump the show. What are you guys going to do? How is this going to play out? Chris is great as well. We all know Jake, and so I guess there will be a lot of kicker talk. And tell us what you got going on.
So this is going to be basically a 2-hour show of our all-in football show that we have on after the Sirius XM show starts. It's going to be Mondays and Wednesdays on our FTN YouTube channel. So it's going to be just a whole entire thing of the three of us, chatting about fantasy football, arguing a little bit, making lists. If you don't know Jake Seeley, that's kind of our thing. Talking about banning kickers. That's a big thing we don't discuss. We just mention it briefly, but if kickers are brought up, we all hide, because we're like, oh no, what's going to happen? So there may be bets surrounding whether or not Jake Seeley has to talk about kickers or not. So it's fun. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna just chat, shoot the S as we normally do, have a ton of fun, answer your questions as often as we can, and just get ready for this season. It's gonna be so exciting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Jake is a wonderful person. We've been doing
he is great
for quite a long time. Chris Meany's fantastic. You, on the other hand, you're horrible people, Lauren. I've drafted with you, and I'm still not over. It's still almost a year, and I still got a little bit of a burr under my saddle about the entire situation in the Kings Classic draft last year. It was great, getting to draft with you, and we're all taking everyone's players. There are no secrets in these things, but you did steal my soul on more than one occasion, and it was fantastic. Great league, great fun. We will all be at the Expo this year again, and there's some news on that front as well. A new league, correct? Well, there's multiple new leagues. Tell us about the one you'll be in.
This is so exciting. So last year, I'm just going to do a little peek behind the curtain here. First of all, you're not getting away with this. So he also sniped me back So let's just be fair here, Bob Harris, because I know your games, okay? So before the draft even started, I was actually filling in for Mike Clay, and we had a picture taken of you, me, and Michael Fabiano in that order. No. It was you and then me and then Michael Fabiano. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Then we got our draft order, and we happened to be sitting right next to each other. It was Michael Fabiano, me, and then you. It was really strange. And we were drafting in the middle of this 14-person expert league. If you're not familiar with the Kings Classic, it is a pretty cool experience to be a part of. And then that's how we finished, was I believe Michael Fabiano, me, then you. So it was very weird how that whole entire thing panned out. I got hit by the injury bug last year. But on Sunday at the Fantasy Football Expo, if you're not familiar, that Bob Lung puts on in Canton, they have all these panels on Sunday, which are really informative. And the newest one last year was Women of Fantasy Football. So he had a whole entire discussion. It was a 30-minute long. We got our own room, and we got to talk about what it's like to be a woman in fantasy sports, a woman as a fantasy analyst. And it was amazing. The room, it was packed. It was standing room only. And then there were people lined up outside in the hallway to listen. It was incredible. And so Bob took it one step further this year. We actually get our own room, a big room, and we get a full hour to, really answer people's questions, because apparently a lot of people had some questions that they wanted to ask and, kind of figure out like what it's like and what they can do to help. And it was really neat. So, and then to even take it a step further than that, we have the inaugural Queens Classic this year. So we're doing our own ladies only version of the Kings Classic, which is very exciting. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. These ladies are some of the best in the business. And it's nice to just even be in the same room with them, let alone have relationships with these women, and then be able to draft and be a part of this whole entire movement, if you will, of the women in fantasy football sports. Shout out to Faith Enos and Josh Hudson, too. And it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Some of them on this very show, including you and Britt Flynn recently, and more to come on that.
Right, I was in that girl.
Room. I was in that room, and I had
yes, you were.
Sorry, standing room only people. Sorry, standing room.
I know you were
people.
early. You were early. Well done, Bob.
I was. Hi, Albert. Hi, Charles. Hi, Ryan. Hi, JSC. Sorry I missed you at the top. I appreciate everyone coming once again. We're going to dig into some items and issues and some things. I thought it was interesting just before this show began. We got news that DeVante Parker gets a new deal in New England, 3 years, up to $33 million, maybe $14 million guaranteed. This is interesting, mostly because it sinks all my shares of Tyquan Thornton, who, by the way, talked to Nicole Yang, covers that team on a daily basis about a week or so ago. She mentioned that Thornton, maybe we were overdoing the Thornton love because he's been unable to practice much in recent weeks. But whatever the case, Parker's there. I think the portion of that that's of interest is the DeAndre Hopkins situation. The talk was if he signed, probably Parker would become a cap casualty. Apparently not. So, we'll just kind of spin off that. DeAndre Hopkins, what is the ideal landing spot in Lauren Carpenter's world for one DeAndre Hopkins?
He really needs to go to the Chiefs. I really think that is the absolute best landing spot for him. It's terrible for the other 31 teams in the NFL. I'm sorry. That just your business. You're going to have to figure out how to deal with this ridiculously amazing squad if they add DeAndre Hopkins. But I really think the landing spot for him in the Chiefs is not only beneficial for real football, but it's amazing for fantasy football. It's great for the Kadarius Toney truthers, which I am not, because if you can literally spread defenses out against Travis Kelce and, DeAndre Hopkins, if he's there, that leaves some opportunity for guys like Sky Moore, for Kadarius Toney, and of course that just makes Patrick Mahomes that much better. So that's I think where he needs to go. Whether or not that happens, we'll see. Andy Reid is kind of a genius, so I wouldn't be surprised. But I think he should go to the Chiefs.
I think we all would love the Chiefs to have that true wide receiver one. The Chiefs continue to tell us they don't need one of those. And they're certainly not going to pay for one. Maybe Hopkins becomes a little realistic. Royal Slade in the chat, a known Patriots fan, says Kendrick Bourne may be the cap casualty, and that makes sense now. And he says there are still in on D-Hop. I can tell you, one of my sources, saw Bill O'Brien about a week ago and just asked him, what about Hopkins, just as a, kind of a guy out on the street. And O'Brien openly said, yeah, we think we might have a chance to land him. So that's kind of interesting. So
that is interesting.
We'll kind of see
how
how this
old
plays
is
out.
DeVante Parker? Like, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Bob. I'm on a slight delay, everybody, so I'm sorry about that if this sounds kind of weird. So I will be interrupting Bob just normally because that's what I do anyway because he loves me, and that's just kind of my personality. I know. I might snipe you again, just by osmosis. I will, put my brain into whoever you're sitting next to so they snipe you in the draft. But, how old is DeVante Parker? Is he, 85?
30.
He never goes away.
30.
It's amazing. I love that he got this deal. I love that it's a thing. I'm excited for that whole. I don't want DeAndre Hopkins to sign there. I want DeVante Parker to have this killer season where we're all like, oh my gosh, here he is again. We're still talking about DeVante Parker, and then I'm still going to spell his name wrong because too many Devantes. Yes. I can't ever get them right.
Too many Devantos. Mr. Scamper's hoping for the Panthers, reminding us the Cardinals could use a wide receiver one. The Cardinals need a lot of things.
They need a quarterback.
They had a guy named DeAndre Hopkins. They need a quarterback first. One of the things, and I think Cardinals totally in tank mode. I think they're getting their quarterback next year in the draft. That's what I think. They got their eye on Caleb.
Yeah, there's
Williams.
no relationship. Yeah, there's no relationship to Kyler Murray. I do that every single time. Kyler Murray. There's no relationship to him like there was in the previous regime. So it would not surprise me if they just kept him off the field, keep him healthy, use him as some wonderful trade value to shore up some other pieces that they need all over that team. So it would not surprise me if Murray is not on that squad and they're just going to tank for Caleb.
True. I think is Murley, is that a combination of Murray and Merlot, which is what you usually
I don't even know. I don't drink wine. I'm not a wine girl, but there's something about certain names that I just cannot get right. I can type it out perfectly fine, but I think it's because of the Kyler. I just add that L, and I do it all the time. I constantly say Kyler Murley. I also do Wookiee wide receivers. I say that a lot on accident. I also just mix up words.
I'm gonna try and bait you into that if I can.
Yeah, you will find that out on our Sirius XM show. It's running joke. I just make up words. Jake is really trying to teach me, and I did well so far this show, to say sniped, not snipered. I always say snipered instead of sniped, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. It's snipered.
It's fine. We all get it. By the way, Frankie back high in the chat. Appreciate you coming. He says, Dolphin fan, Parker, nothing special. He can briefly be special. He has brief moments of specialness, usually against the Patriots, not so much for them, though. So that's going to be a little problem. We have not talked for a little while. So I want to hit some of the big storylines and get your take on the New York Football Jets, who will be playing those Patriots twice this year. And they'll be doing it with Aaron Rodgers. They're reporting today that Aaron Rodgers, being a perfectionist, is really pushing his teammates. We have Rodgers talking about it's a legit possibility. Garrett Wilson will be the best receiver in the NFL at some point in his career, hopefully soon, says Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot going on there. What is your overall view? By the way, Aaron Rodgers going as a pretty cheap quarterback too right now. Are you in any best? Are you in the best ball rooms yet, Lauren?
I have dabbled. I haven't really dove into it quite yet, which is shame on me. Only because I got a lot of stuff going on in real life right now, so I haven't been able to dive into best ball as much as I really would have wanted to. But yeah, I'm all about his value, and I'm hoping that it stays that way for redraft. I don't think it will. I think his ADP is going to climb. It's Aaron Rodgers, and the reason why it crossed my eyes earlier is Aaron Rodgers, the perfectionist. Eat some more mushrooms, buddy, and take your ayahuasca, and you do you. Grow your ponytail out again. I just have this. He just gives me such diva vibes that it's okay, come on, man. But there's no denying his talent. He is Hall of Fame caliber. There's no words to describe how good Aaron Rodgers is, which is very annoying. And what he's allowed the Jets to kind of grasp and see something within their grasp just by being there is profound. It is quite profound with what he's capable of doing. And yeah, I really do think that Garrett Wilson, maybe not this year. I know he's going to do well. He did well last year with Mike White and Zach Wilson. And what was it, Joe Flacco? Yeah. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be just fine, and especially under someone like Aaron Rodgers, he's going to do nothing but flourish, barring injury, knock on wood. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. But if Aaron Rodgers' value climbs anymore, I might have to because he might be going a little bit too high for my taste. But I think he's going to have some pretty exceptional weeks this season.
I think there's a handful of quarterbacks right now that are going in the quarterback 2 range who are obviously capable of quarterback 1 numbers. He's right up at the top of that list.
Aren't there always?
We'll get into some of that.
The value.
Ryan Larkin has a question in the chat, Lauren. He wanted to know what you think. So let's say your desired outcome comes to pass and somehow DeAndre Hopkins lands in Kansas City. Would that be a hit to Travis Kelce, who most of us are drafting still in the first round? I haven't seen him outside the first round in any drafts at all. And I wanted to ask you, I didn't want to put you on the spot on the best balls. So when I throw some values out there, I'll try and throw the values out with you. But I think the hi, Jim Furry, it is nice to have you back. But the hit to Travis Kelce, in my mind, it would be minimal because we've seen him be pretty productive with a guy named Tyreek Hill too. Are you in the same page as me on this?
I'm even on the opposite side. I think it's fabulous for Travis Kelce. Look at what the defenses have to do against the Kansas City Chiefs. See? Oh, I did it again. The Chiefs. Oh, that's a new one I need to start using. The Kansas City Chiefs. I hope that's not a bad word, and I just keep saying it now. No, I don't think it is. Right? So it's defenses have to scheme around, Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and it's who else? Travis Kelce. That's it. So if you have another alpha wide receiver, when I say alpha wide receiver, I don't just mean, the one that kind of is taking all of the targets, who is considered wide receiver 1. This is DeAndre Hopkins that we're talking about. He is going to pull double coverage, and he's going to succeed under double coverage. That's just what he does. His hands alone are the size of a grizzly bear's head. So he can literally reach up and just be like, dink, got it. Doesn't matter. That pulls defenses away. What are they going to do now? So who is it? Is it DeAndre Hopkins? Is it Travis Kelce? And Travis Kelce can basically play anywhere and do almost anything. So not only do I agree with you, Bob, that I do think it's minimal, I actually see this as a positive for Travis Kelce. And I think, if anything, that stock just goes up for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that as well. By the way, Travis Kelce talking this week, acknowledging that he's underpaid. He has an average payroll, $14.3 million. Said when he saw Tyreek Hill
Me
go and get that
Travis.
year.
Join the club.
Yeah, so hopefully, but he says it's nice being on a winner, and apparently those Super Bowl rings they give out in Kansas City are worth a little bit. Royal Slade chiming in, Parker's base is around $5.7 million, so very incentive heavy, and that makes sense too. Just seems like interesting that there was the talk leading up to this that if Hopkins landed there, maybe he would be gone. Clearly, he will not be gone. We'll see if Hopkins lands there. I mean, I'd be interested if he does. Going back to Garrett Wilson on the Jets, I did a show this week with James Coe on that Serious Fantasy.
I love channel. James Coe.
Yeah, I had a good time talking to James. It's been a little while since then. So we did a nice little show the other morning, and we talked about Garrett Wilson and, his connection with the reception perception, Matt Harmon, this whole thing.
Matt Harmon, yep.
That work together. And so my question was, I feel like we're basically drafting Wilson at close to his ceiling. James Coe says no. The ceiling we may be looking at a top 5 wide receiver at the end of this year. Where do you feel about that?
I would not be surprised. That outcome is a little rich for my blood, but if it did turn out to happen, I wouldn't be like shock and awe. That again, we're talking about the Aaron Rodgers take here. And if you also look at it, teams are people, right? They're made up of morale. They're made up of wins and losses and how these teams can bounce back and do well together. The Jets have an amazing defense. The one piece that they were missing in that offense is a quarterback, and they've got one. So that would not surprise me that every single offensive fantasy is what I'm talking about here. Fantasy offensive weapon is upgraded. And I'm also including the running back room here. It would not surprise me if all of these guys they just skyrocket in their fantasy finishes. And it would not surprise me one little bit. I think he might finish as a high-end wide receiver too. That's my floor for him. But ceiling, I can't toss that out. I can't really argue against it. So especially with the schedule that the Green Bay Packers have for Aaron Rodgers, there is potential there.
Yeah. So says Lauren Carpenter. By the way, if you're not following her on Twitter, and I'm shocked if you're not, at Stepmom Lauren, Easy to find. Go into my at Football Diehard account. You will find links to that there as well, and you should be following her if you are not already. Lots of great content available on that timeline that I enjoy immensely. From many people I enjoy immensely at Fade the Noise Fantasy as well, including our buddy Adam Pfeiffer, who was on here a couple weeks ago, and who was very excited, I got to let you know, about the whole Fade the Noise show, was Adam Pfeiffer. So we'll go with that.
Exciting.
So Breece Hall, the injury issue, yeah, he's a great guy. Breece Hall injury situation, putting a little value onto him. I think I've tried to take the lesson from last year, not to go overboard on people coming off ACLs. Everyone's different. The healing times are different, but he should be ready for close enough to week 1. For you, is it worth paying his current price? And he's going as a pretty solid to high end running back too. Is that worth the price of admission, even knowing maybe he's off to a slow start and you don't get the full Hall effect until down the stretch even?
Yeah. This is where I'm weird. This is such a contradictory season for me, Bob, and I'm like having an identity crisis with this, because normally I really want to take the value. When there's a running back by committee situation, I like to take the second guy, because the value that I can get for them from the draft, I have to pay a lot less quote money, if you will, or draft capital in order to have that person on my team. If there's going to be close to a 50-50 split, even if we're talking 60-40, that's still worth it, especially if I'm drafting them later. And Breece Hall is going a little bit rich. I like the reports that have been coming out from the Jets. I like the reports from camp. I think that he has the opportunity to get... Sure, it is going to be a slower start, but I think give him a few weeks when he's on the field, that's worth it for me. This is a 17-week season that we're talking about, so, knock on wood, barring injury again or re-injury, I don't mind paying that price. Now, am I going out and targeting him? No. This is where that identity crisis comes in, because if I'm in my draft, I like to look at roster construction. So I like to see, okay, who... am I know I'm going to get consistent points from? Who is my high ceiling? Who are my safer floors? He's one of those guys I don't mind taking a dart throw on if the opportunity is correct. I'm not going to reach, but if he falls to his current ADP or any further than that, then I don't mind that, because he's likely going to be an option at RB2 for me, or a flex opportunity for me that I can use in a matchup-based situation with, down the stretch, the opportunity to be massive RB1 numbers. So I don't mind it. It's risky, though. It is risky.
So I'll just say right now, underdog, I was just checking the underdog ADP here. He is running back 11. 30, ADP is 30. So, you're into the third round anyway. So, I think it's worth a gamble. So a lot of glowing talk about Israel Abanikanda come behind him. Michael Carter's still there. Zonovan Knight, I think, is an afterthought at this point with Abanikanda. A lot of buzz about Abanikanda. Are we buying into that? Does he look like the handcuff to you? Or who's the late round running back of interest to you in New York if maybe you miss on Hall or you land Hall and you want to cover your base early on?
I don't mind that. I don't mind that option. I think I actually might avoid doing an insurance policy for the Jets, though. For me, it's kind of Breece Hall or bust. So that sounds so counterintuitive now that I just spoke that into the world. I probably should look at who I want to handcuff if I'm worried.
I don't think it is. Well. I think there are better ways to mitigate that risk with, hey, look, maybe Abanikanda is a thing. I don't know. Maybe Michael Carter can gain a little steam early on. I do have some really late shares of both in some best balls, but maybe the path, and this is something I've been doing more, Lauren, is, if we're trying to fit these puzzle pieces together, maybe you look at some of those running backs that traditionally have injury issues who might start off strong and you're not sure they make it through the season. I am injury agnostic, but I acknowledge certain players have had bad luck. Maybe a Rashad Penny or someone along those lines who you can get well into the later rounds. Is that a consideration ever for you, like trying to piece together if you're worried about situations where, this guy, or another thing that I like to do is if I get a boom bust player, try to find a super steady player. Let's say I get, a wide receiver with my first receiver who's boom bust. I'll get the Keenan Allen or the Amon-Ra St. Brown after that to kind of even things out. Is that a reasonable approach to you?
Everyone who is in any league that I'm currently in, plug your ears. Because yes, that is exactly what I do. I really like that. I don't know if it's because I feel like it's a more conservative approach to my team, but I've been told that before. I believe it's more balanced. I like that because I can have a fallback, but I still have solid safety at the floor, and then I have high ceiling upside. And then that always works with your matchups, right? That's why we have a bench. We have the opportunity to evaluate defenses. Usually around week 4 is where we get a way better idea of what these defenses are capable of defending against and what they're weak against. And why not have that upside, even if it's a guy that may not be consistent, but you do have to have those solid starters on your roster where you're like, no, this is a set and forget. I'm good with this. I know they're going to get me, let's say in half PPR, it's going to be 8 to 10 to 12 points. That is solid because you know those guys are going to produce. I really like having a well-balanced portfolio when it comes to all of my fantasy rosters. So I will mitigate the risk, just like you said.
I think I like to say you can have risk on your roster without having a risky roster. And that's, kind of the techniques you use is, you kind of balance out those boom bust players with the steady eddies of the league. Jim Furry wants to know, do injury histories, do you take injury histories into account when you pick the number 2 guys? So for starters, I just, if you've been around here, I'm injury agnostic. Anybody and everybody can get hurt, right? But I'm going to acknowledge that there are players who have had worse luck, or there are players, chronically injured, it happens, right? Players can get injured every year, but a chronic injury is a different thing. So there are players who are borderline on that chronic injury that I'm still like kind of a little in on it. I'm looking at you, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, I think we can say that's somewhat chronic, right? I mean, it's happened multiple times. It's a concern. But you can easily insure that guy with Mike White late for one thing, but there's such a range of quarterbacks. Let me ask you about this. By the way, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. You know this. I know this. The American people know this. We appreciate if you would chime in. But like, when you look at some of the quarterbacks that are available later, Geno Smith is going at what is current 80. He's like, I want to say he's going in the double-digit rounds. Jared Goff. I mean, and if you wait way late, I mean, look, I'm not trusting Mathew Stafford, but also I'm not afraid of Mathew Stafford. It looks like he's in much better shape. So how do you feel about grabbing a guy like Tua that's a risky play? Or how about this? He's not a Wookiee wide receiver, but he is.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Richardson. How do you feel about maybe grabbing Anthony Richardson a little ahead of ADP and hopes he's a big, turns into a big play thing because you have these quarterbacks waiting later that you feel comfortable with?
This is such an excellent question because there's so many layers. It's like an onion, right? I don't mean to shout out Shrek here, but there's a lot of different aspects to this. And the one piece of advice that I give generally with fantasy football, go with your gut and also go with what you want your team to look like. Because any analyst or expert that's in this field can say, oh, yes, do this, do that. But if you don't like your team, this is not fun. So if you are an Anthony Richardson truther, which I don't hate this, I don't like him for the beginning of the season, but I don't mind him later. The man can run. Okay, this is a good thing. And he's got a lot of dump off opportunities that we has with the Colts. I am okay with this. I am definitely okay with this. I think that he has opportunity, but yes, I am the same as you are. I evaluate the injury, but for me, I have a year to it. Like, if you haven't been able to stay healthy for 2 years straight, I am going to be slightly gun shy, but guess what? So is everybody else. So he's going to be falling in the draft. That is just the nature of how this risk is built into their ADP, and I totally just spit all over myself, and that was awesome. I am sexy. That's for sure. I know. I love myself. That's fine. So it's built in. It's built into the risk, I think. And I am not averse to it, but I want to make sure that I like that guy based on their current opportunity for the year that's ahead of them. I don't want to be mired in the past and mired in their past performances. I have a lot of high expectations for Tua Tagovailoa, and I have zero problems drafting him. Zero. I honestly think that he's going to have an exceptional year this year. Very, very high on him. On the other side of it too, Dalvin Cook, I don't believe he's actually played a full year in the NFL, so it's not on the flip side. I have no problem drafting Dalvin Cook as high as he's going to go. I know he's going to miss time. I'm just going to have to make sure that I make up for that later in the draft to have some fill-in opportunities and just make sure I'm smart with my bench players.
So, there's a draft behind us, just a recent draft from one of our magazines. If you look at that entire first round, the number of players who have not missed games due to injuries are, I believe, 2: Justin Jefferson and Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Bijan Robinson has not played an NFL game.
He hasn't played.
Probably so there you have it. It happens, and you have to deal it. Frankie Back not on board with the whole to a concussion thing. He thinks it's getting ridiculous. He said no one's worried about the Lamar Jackson injury history. He hasn't played a full season in 2 years. Look, I think that there is a difference, right, with concussions.
Good point.
Because the league is so sensitive to it, right? That's the difference to me with concussions. And by the way, Kenny Pickett has had a couple, consecutive concussions last year, had a pair last year, and had some dating back to that. And I think that's the problem when you get into concussion world is there's going to be a huge, this huge outcry of, the media and the, people out there. And the league hears that, right? It's, not all their policies are necessarily tied to what's going on in the field. Some of them are, public relations policies. And that's going to be an issue that Tua has to deal with. They need to keep him healthy. So that's the portion of that. Lamar Jackson, I feel like we're drafting him very highly. He's going off generally as the 5th quarterback. You might be the 6th. I think pretty much every draft I've been into this point, and it's been way too many. It's going to be some order of Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, and then you're going to start seeing Lamar, Fields. Those guys are kind of a little mini tier unto themselves. How do you feel about Lamar Jackson this year? Are you enthused by the new offense that we don't really? I mean, look, it's a great offense. Todd Monken has had super productive offenses, most recently at Georgia. Prior to that, though, in Tampa Bay and in Cleveland. So, is Lamar Jackson that guy? Is this something we should be counting on the way we are?
This is another really good question. It's no wonder why you do this for a living, Bob. I think this is such a weird year for Lamar Jackson with the Ravens because of all of this offseason drama. And you just said he's the 5th quarterback off the board. There was a time not long ago when this was like he was quarterback 1 off the board, 2, 3. And just the fact that he was any later than that was mind-boggling. And what has changed for him? For the better, almost everything. So I think that this is going to be a great year for him. So the fact that he's, quote, fallen is interesting. Now, would I want to draft him in the upper echelon of the rounds? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I would have to ponder on a little bit longer. But I think that he's going to have an excellent season. Mark Andrews is still there. He got paid. He's got the forward thinking. He's got the future. I think he's going to have a really good year, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season, as we mock draft and we get into best ball drafts, to see exactly where he falls in the draft, because there is an opportunity to get possibly one of the top 3 to 4 quarterbacks in, let's say, just redraft fantasy. Here's what I'm talking about. And but you got him in the 5th or 6th round, and you were able to stock up on these, killer running backs and wide receivers. Or maybe you wanted to go early with the tight ends and then stack that with the Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson. And it's interesting because I think that there's some opportunity here. And I think, honestly, for him and what he's capable of doing, he's actually being a little undervalued. So it's interesting. Or do you wait and draft someone a little bit later on in the draft? That's a personal preference, in my opinion, but we'll see.
We will forever chase 2019 Lamar Jackson, whether he is ever.
Oh, we always will.
I mean, look, that's a phenomenal story, and I always say the same stupid joke here. I mean, we're still chasing 2013 Josh Gordon, so I'm damn well know we're going to be chasing 2019. I'm still chasing 2019 Michael Thomas, but I'm doing it in like later rounds. I feel okay about that. A few comments, and by the way, Mr. Scamper, shout out Cakes and Parfaits too. Dame Overboard would like us not to repeat this, so I'll say it quietly. The Rams may be playing from behind a lot, like people are predicting for the Vikings due to bad defenses. The Rams have the worst secondary per recent rankings. Stafford to Kupp is double fire emojis. Dame Overboard and I have a super affinity for Cooper Kupp. I rank him my number 1 wide receiver. I have taken him many times as the number 1 overall pick in my best balls. I'm mixing that up a little bit. And I thought, hey, Gemmo the Icon's here. Hello, Gemmo. Hi, Joe Aver.
Hi, Gemmo.
For coming into the chat. So I think that is interesting. Talk about the top of that receiver class. Kind of suss it out for me how you see it. I mean, it's the same 3 guys. It's Chase, Jefferson, and Kupp. However you see it. However do you see it, Lauren Carpenter?
Oh, this is splitting hairs with a hatchet. One of my favorite phrases. I guess I just made that one up too. Yeah, I
Do
tried
it.
to Google it. It was something that I heard of before, and apparently it's not. I guess I just made that phrase up. This
I
is,
don't split
I
many of
do.
those.
I know I should because they're already split at the ends. I need a haircut.
Mm.
I do love myself some Cooper Cup. I can't help it. I really can't help it. And I also love Matthew Stafford. That may be my, spouse's Lions love and all the years that I've rooted for Matthew Stafford and how amazing he is. But the way that I rank these in my head, obviously it's super duper close. But I'm going to go Cup, Jefferson, and Chase, and we're talking measly points in between the three of them. I don't think there's any.
Right.
I don't think there's any consideration otherwise between the three of them. But just a real quick note on the Rams. Even if they are playing from behind, that's fantastic for fantasy football. I think that was the point of what he was trying to say. Don't forget about Tyler Higbee. He is still there, and people are forgetting that he exists. Like,
They
don't forget
are.
about Tyler Higbee, please. Or just please do if you're in my draft, because I'm cool with that.
I want to say, I think I've been saying the third. I think it's the fourth most targets among tight ends last year. Let me double check my calculations, please. But look, if you're chasing volume at the wide receiver position or the running back position, which I am, or chasing that everywhere. And so he did have the fourth most targets in the NFL last year at the tight end position, well over 100, 108. So I'm with you on this one. He is a guy that's kind of growing on me who I'm grabbing really late. Game overboard. If Josh Gordon signs with the team, I still have to pick him up off waivers. It is a blood pact. I share in this. Justin Herbert could be stellar under Kellen Moore's tutelage. This is a thing here too. Joe Abear mentions this, Lauren. I think one of the complaints about Joe Lombardi's offense was the dump off passes, right? The average depth of target was short for Justin Herbert. If he goes a little deeper, and he has a new piece in Quentin Johnston, but he also has some other pieces that are really good. One of them being Austin Ekeler. Maybe that's part of the short passing things. Justin Herbert's going, I want to think in general, let me bring him up on the underdog, but I think in general, probably right in that same range as right after the Fields Lamar Jackson range. Whether you like Trevor Lawrence better or him better, I think they're kind of a little tier unto themselves as well. Do you feel like this? I mean, we want to say bounce back. I don't even know if it's a bounce back. It wasn't like last year was like the worst year ever, but could he be better this year with a new coordinator calling the plays?
Yeah, let me ask you a quick question just to refresh my cobwebby brain. Lombardi was offensive coordinator for the Saints, correct?
He was prior to the Chargers, and he went to the Chargers for the last couple of years. Now he's in Denver as the offensive coordinator with Sean Payton again. So, yes, he had been with the Saints prior to that.
Okay, cool. So during the years, and obviously this year aside, we're talking Drew Brees, right? Not exactly known for having this huge, long bomb arm. So yeah, the ADOT, the average depth of target, the dump off passes, that was kind of what I think that Lombardi was used to because of what he had to deal with an aging Drew Brees who didn't have that, length in his arm like he had before. Don't take that the wrong way, everybody. So, yeah, I'm excited about this offense. I'm very excited about this offense. I think that Justin Herbert's going to be fantastic. And I actually think that he is in the same tier as Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. That's just kind of how I roll. But I need Mike Williams to step up and stay healthy, young man. Let's go.
Or Quentin Johnston, either of them. I'll take either or, but yeah, Mike Williams for sure. I think obviously we're hoping these rookie receivers fare well, but if you look back to last year when both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were on the field together, the numbers were phenomenal. Also, when you look at Keenan Allen last year when he was on the field, the numbers were even more phenomenal all by himself. I want to say weeks 13 on after his return from injury, he was fantasy's wide receiver 6. People. So it wasn't like Justin Herbert was doing nothing. By the way, just looking at the underdog fantasy ADP right now, Lamar Jackson has moved ahead of Joe Burrow. Is going like by almost a full round as quarterback 4 now. Joe Burrow going off as quarterback 5. Justin Fields is quarterback 6. Just early in round 5. Then Justin Herbert in middle of round 5 as quarterback 7, followed by Trevor Lawrence. DeSean Watson has moved up to where I rank him. Look, this is like my own rankings here. Damn it, underdog. DeSean Watson up there. Let's get into the Cleveland Browns offense a little bit. There's been a lot of consternation because I love it. Nick Chubb is there for starters, Lauren.
I do love
Nick Chubb. And I go back to the Matthew Berry did the article in the scouting combine where he talks and gets all the gossip. And there was a lot of talk that they're going to throw the ball a hell of a lot more. It makes perfect sense to me because why? Their owner just spent $230 million guaranteed on DeSean Watson. They want him to turn back into DeSean Watson. What do you think the odds of that happening? He's got a pretty good receiving core. Elijah Moore coming on a little bit. And do you think this would destroy one Nick Chubb? Maybe it means he might catch some footballs for a change.
Oh, let's not get aggressive here, Bob. I think what he had 5 receptions last year or something. Of course, I'm being very flippant.
Okay.
Unless I'm right.
10.
I think I might be right. I remember. I mean, right? Who cares? Any more is fantastic. No, I don't think it's going to take away from Nick Chubb at all. And I do think that I don't think we're ever going to see the DeSean Watson that we knew of. I just think there's just been way too many off-field issues. He's also getting older. He was away from football for 2 years. So I think we're going to see close to maybe 70 to 75% of what DeSean Watson can be. Now, but what does that mean? It still means he's really freaking good. And I think he's going to make this offense very good. We'll see what the wide receiver room is going to make of that. He's not traditionally known for targeting his running backs, so that doesn't necessarily bode super well. But Nick Chubb is really all we got here with the Browns. He was a huge winner from the draft, so I'm excited about Nick Chubb. I'm glad he's going in the first round. He's going towards the end of the first round in different mock drafts that I've been in. I like this, and I think it does give the opportunity for Nick Chubb to catch a few little passes out of the backfield. Who knows? And my only issue is I don't want DeSean Watson to start being that mobile quarterback again and start snipering those rushing touchdowns away from Nick Chubb just to be cute at the goal line.
We'll not have any snipering around here. By the way, it's about 21 catches a year is what the average has been for Nick Chubb over the course of his career in Cleveland. So, and he didn't play much his first year and had 20 catches that year. His low was 16. His high was 36. So he's not going to add a ton of PPR value. We'll see what happens with this offense. I do think we're going to see they're going to ask DeSean Watson to go back and see if we can get that top 5 fantasy producer at the position. I'm willing to gamble on him a little bit just because of the reasons we talked about earlier. There's lots of quarterbacks later in the draft I feel really good about. Gemma wants to know in the chat, what Bears running back are we drafting in redraft, not named Justin Fields, who is by the way also better as a passer.
Justin Fields. I'm kidding. I'm still going with Khalil Herbert. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind where he's going in the draft. In the fantasy draft, of course, what I'm talking about. I like this. I like Khalil Herbert. Don't mind it at all.
Like you can pick your poison. They're all going late enough. They're all going in the same range. I want to say Herbert's around running back 40, which he should be higher. If you like Deonta Foreman, you're getting him cheaper. If you like Roshan Johnson, like our guy John Lau does, you get him even cheaper.
I need to ask you a question.
Do it.
I need to ask you a question. We talked about this on our All In Football show. I just do not have the same fear of Deonta Foreman taking away all of these touches and volume away from Khalil Herbert. Am I crazy? Because I'm just I don't know why everyone's so scared of this young man.
I think that's totally in the range of possible outcomes there. I mean, we go back to last June when David Montgomery was still there. All the chatter was that coaches liked what Khalil Herbert gave the offense maybe more than Montgomery. Now Montgomery's gone, so maybe that tells you a little bit about where they're all at. So yeah, I believe that is totally within the range, and I'm not afraid to draft him. I mean, you're getting him as a running back 4. And if I miss on him, I'm not afraid to take Deonta Foreman as a running back 5. So it's kind of they're correctly priced. So there you have it, Gemma. We're not out there actively chasing these running backs, but when they fall to me, I'm not afraid to take them. I think the concern is what you said in your question, Gemma. Justin Fields going to get a lot of rushing yards there. Mark Spafford wants to know, do we think Van Jefferson can give us a Robert Woods type production as the Rams' number 2 receiver? A little buzz about him today saying he's going to be an X factor. I feel like we've heard this discussion before.
I'm gonna interrupt you. Bob. What pseudonym are you using, Matt Stafford? Did he just call himself Mark
Stafford? Oh, Matt, I see what you did there. Matt Stafford looking very well.
This is Matthew Stafford. I see what you're doing here. Now repeat your question because I just had a moment. I'm getting a little sweaty over here. I know who you are, Mark Spafford. Yeah, okay. Mark Stafford, you do you.
I should have known. It took a new set of eyes. So Van Jefferson, can you
Yeah.
give us that wide receiver 2 production that Robert Woods gave us in that same offense? I said with a skeptical smirk.
I'm doing a meh. I don't think so. I think he's going to be a fun gadgety option. I think he's going to have like maybe 2 or 3 super big plays, which will then give him a pretty decent fantasy outcome, and people are going to chase him off the waiver wire. I don't think he's going to be a significant, consistent fantasy producer in my opinion, for your squad. The 2 offensive pieces, aside from the running back K-Makers situation, I'm going for Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. Those are the 2 that I think are going to have the most explosive amounts of volume when it comes to that passing game.
I totally agree with you 100%. I think everyone's eager to draft guys named Puka Nacua, or trying to do something, doing something sneaky and hoping for the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know if Van Jefferson's even a guy I'm going to take looking to avoid zeros, but he might, it's in the range of possible outcomes. At some point, he might turn into the thing the Rams want him to. I'm just not going to draft him like that. And hello, JSC. Thank you.
Warren Schmarpenter over here says, thank you for your question, Mark Spafford. Okay.
By the way, Dame Overboard, my theory is Watson never truly recovers to get back to the form, much like Tiger after his debacle. And I mean, we'll see about that. If you base that on what we saw last year, it's a fair assessment.
Yeah, my Pomeranian played better than DeSean Watson last year, so there's that. He can only go up from here.
I'm not a fan of the Pomeranian. Will Anthony Richardson be a top 10 quarterback, says JSC? I think that's pressing it, but he is the lottery ticket at the position with that athleticism. Do you feel like that's totally unrealistic, or is that a possibility?
I think that's unrealistic for this season. And I would be very surprised if it happens. Good for him if it does. My daughter is a Gator, so I'm all about that alumna life. I don't think it is for him this season. I think the organization is just a little bit too much of a hot mess. I think that he has a lot to learn. He already wasn't NFL ready getting drafted. So it's difficult for me to see a pathway for that this year. But 2024, watch out now. We'll see how he plays. We'll see how quickly he learns, what his learning curve looks like, what they do for him next offseason to be able to shore up, to protect him, to give him weapons. This year, no. 2024, watch out.
I think he's a better best ball play where he's going to give you some, maybe some top 10, maybe even some number 1 weeks. But you don't have to pick him, and you don't have to be.
Mitchell Trubisky was capable of doing that, so I'm pretty sure Anthony Richardson can do the same.
We have a few more minutes here with Lauren Carpenter, who has been kind enough to join us. We're on the hot seat, and she's done a fine job. And it has been hot. She's been sweating and trying to hold it all together. And
You're welcome.
You follow her on Twitter.
Sorry, it looks like a sweaty mess.
Follow her on Twitter at Stepmom Lauren. And find her work at Fade the Noise Fantasy, and star of the new fantastic show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio that will be airing at 9 a.m. on Saturdays. FTN Fantasy. It's an original name. It's like my show is called Football Diehards. I don't know where we come up with these great names for our programs. Good work by us, though. And I will be having your co-host Jake Seeley on my radio program this Saturday night, 7 p.m. on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio channel. And by the way, Football Diehards will be bumping up their schedule as we often do in July. We'll be going up, I want to say, 4 nights a week, Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then when the season hits, there will be even more, and you will not be able to avoid me. Sorry, people, deal with it. And so a few more questions in here. Will Kyle Pitts be a Dame Overboard, by the way? Mind is blown. Your daughter is an alligator. That's horrifying. Is that
adopted?
Florida alligator. Okay. Can Nico Collins, Joe Aver wants to know, be a fantasy factor this season?
I still don't buy this. I really struggle with this one. If he does, good for him. I'm staying away.
I'm not able to stay away because he is so damn cheap. I'm going to look it up here on the underdogs and see where he can be found.
You bring up a good point.
5, if you're getting a team's wide receiver 1 as your wide receiver 5, and by the way, I think he's going after some of the guys we have discussed here. John Mechie isn't going before him. Nico Collins, there he is. He is wide receiver 61, 132 ADP. I mean, that's a wide receiver 1 on the worst team, assuming they're the worst team. I'm probably okay with that. I mean, there are players in that same range. Some of the players going in that same price range. Adam Thielen, another wide receiver 1. The aforementioned Van Jefferson. Going a little ahead of him is Rondale Moore, Romeo Doubs, who I do like an awful lot. So let's dig into that a little bit, the Green Bay Packers situation. But first, there is a question about Kyle Pitts. Is he finally going to turn into Kyle Pitts?
He didn't suck too bad last year. Calm it down. Okay. This is what the problem was with Kyle Pitts. And I warned everybody. So many people warned everybody. You have to slow your roll with Kyle Pitts. Okay? Calm down. He's a talented young man. He is a talented tight end. What was his finish? Was it tight end 7 or something? No, it can't be. It couldn't be that high. Anyway, I can't remember exactly where he finished. I think Desmond Ritter's your quarterback. I can't guarantee this. But I think he's gonna have a much better year. I think he's gonna be a much better year. But don't set your expectations through the roof, otherwise you're gonna be disappointed. But yeah, I think he's gonna have a much better year.
Tight end 107, Lauren.
107. No, well, my
tight
bad.
End 33. Tight end 33.
30.
But he got
Okay.
30. I think
Who was I thinking of then?
Maybe up to that point, he might have been a little higher.
I think it was up to that point. Yeah, that might be what I'm thinking. Sorry, my brain is fried. It's been a crazy day. So sorry if some of the wires are getting crossed up in my sweaty head. But I think he's going to do much better this year. It's going to depend on what Arthur Smith wants to do. It is Arthur Smith still, right? See, now I'm like second guessing everything on my life right now. It is Arthur Smith still, isn't it?
It is Arthur Smith. He's a genius, I'm told. According to Cordell Patterson's 2 seasons ago numbers, he is very smart at football.
I think he's going to do much better. Let's hope that Desmond Ritter has taken his year of tutelage to heart and can. But rookie quarterbacks, even if they're sophomore quarterbacks, they do love their tight ends. And Kyle Pitts, a very talented young player.
Right. I think he's still, that's the thing, right? I think quarterback play has been as much an issue as anything. They are going to be a run-heavy team, but that should open things up. Mr. Scampers, by the way, with Nico and Mechie, you'll know early in the season if you can drop them, and that's true, unless you draft them late in best ball, at which point
that's true.
You're hoping they have one good game. Mark Spafford would like to know, no relation to Mathew Stafford that we know of, would like us to compare, would we compare Tony Pollard this year to Austin Eckler's first year without Melvin Gordon? It's a fair question, right? It's a very good offense. He's a super productive player with a limited workload. Will they increase the workload? Does it matter? Can he not be equally effective? They've got Brandon Cooks there to maybe eat up a little bandwidth in this offense. What do you think about Tony Pollard? Where do you rank him?
I love Tony Pollard, and I really like what they didn't do this offseason to ruin this love that we all have for Tony Pollard. And I think that's a pretty solid comp to Austin Ekeler without Melvin Gordon. I think he can. I think it really is. I don't know if he has the same kind of pass catching chops that Austin Ekeler particularly does. Not that he's not a good pass catching running back, but it is a very good comparison. And I think I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I'm really looking forward to what Tony Pollard can do in this offense. This just gives another outlet for Dak Prescott to not have to try to force feed some names. You know what it also does? I think it also opens up CeeDee Lamb a lot more too, especially if he can get involved in the passing game.
I agree with that. Tony Pollard currently on Underdog Fantasy going as the running back 7. The ADP is 22. I think that's about where I've seen him go. It's been kind of consistent where I've seen him across the many platforms, including Underdog. Totally fair. Squeeze a few.
So he's not running back 107?
He is not running back 107. He is not. And I totally made that up about Kyle Pitts. But it was not a good finish, but he was out since November.
I think it was up until his injury. He did pretty good.
I actually agree with that. I think that is true. Terry Hillier, hi, and welcome to the chat, Terry. Thanks for coming. Do we feel Russell Wilson will return to previous form under Sean Payton?
Oh, was it Terry or Carey? Either way, name that ends in Airy. I love this question because I kind of feel this is sort of a similar argument to DeSean Watson. Actually, I was going to say not that Russell Wilson was as bad as DeSean Watson, but he kind of was. Terrible. Sean Payton is a brilliant head coach. He's a brilliant man when it comes to working with quarterbacks. I think that he's definitely going to exceed expectations, and he's going to do a much better job than he did last year. Sean Payton is no joke. He is a hardcore head coach. There's no tomfoolery that goes around when he is in charge, and I think he's going to whip this team into shape. So I really think that he is going to do significantly better this year, and I think he is one of the bigger values when it comes to quarterbacks in this year's draft. He is such a great value, and that shocks me. It really does. And he has the talent, and he has now the management, if you will, and weapons to get it done. And I actually like almost every single wide receiver, including Tim Patrick. I can take whatever hate you care, like you want to give me. I don't care. I love Tim Patrick, and I love the running back room. Javonte Williams, let's go, buddy. So I like this. I think this Denver squad is going to be very, very sneaky this year. So I like all of those. I like all of those options. But yes, I do. I think that Russell Wilson will be exceptionally better.
Nothing but love for Tim Patrick here at Football Diehards, a longtime favorite. By the way, Derek Carr going one quarterback after him in the Saints. So there's a Mathew Stafford, quarterback 21. So there are some late round plays. Jordan Love right in there, quarterback 20. There's so much value at the end of the draft.
I guess I need to do some research or something in this industry that I'm a part of. I'm kidding. It just blows my mind every time I hear these names that are going so late for these quarterbacks. Wow. Ooh, I really like
Brian Larkin asked a quick question. I will answer this one. Did Tyquan Thornton lose value because of DeVante Parker's re-signing? I hope not. I think he was already losing value due to his own inability to get on the field during OTAs. It's been a little bit of a problem for him, and the local reporters are a little concerned about that, and that's a problem. So what's better than last year? What's much better than last year for stat-wise? Yes, it would not take much. Thank you for coming, Andrea. Good night. We'll see you here on Saturday, I'm sure. By the way, for everyone who wants to know, hit me up in the chat here. We are going to do a Scott Fish Bowl 13 mock draft with some of the staffers here. John Laub, Eric Romoff, Jamie Calandro will be in it. Emil Kadlick will be in on it too. And so we'll have that going on. So if you want to drop a note in the chat here, if you want to be part of that, I'll try and find a way to get you that link in advance so you can go in and claim a team in that mock draft before we get going. One question here that I think is pretty good. JSC wants to know, would we take Bijan Robinson over Austin Ekeler? He would like an honest answer this time.
Oh, I am going to go known commodity here. I'm going to go Austin Ekeler over Bijan. But it's close. So I'm not going to tell you this is a landslide. It's not.
I am too. So I had this conversation with Co on the radio this week, and I've been running through this on these. The draft is Saturday at noon Eastern time. So if you throw your name in the chat, I'll get with you on the side. But I had this conversation. So we're drafting Bijan Robinson at his ceiling, or his perceived ceiling, without any understanding what that ceiling might be. I think in Austin Ekeler's case, we know what that ceiling is. He has the most touchdowns of any running back over football for the last 2 years. It's been phenomenal. And even if he regresses some, he's still going to score a lot of touchdowns. I like this situation for him. But Bijan, I like the situation for him too. So if we're Mr. Scampers, I knew you would. If we're sitting here and we're pretending, and we are, that we think Bijan Robinson's locked in for a huge workload because he was the 8th pick overall in the draft, I'm going to remind everyone once again, Jahmyr Gibbs went 4 picks later. He has a great offensive line. He is in an explosive offense, and he's available in round 4. So if you try and decide between Bijan and Ekeler or one of those other more locked-in players, why not draft one of those other locked-in players who you have some faith in and get Jahmyr Gibbs, who maybe has similar upside 3 rounds later. That's all I'm saying. It's just I'm cheap, Lauren.
What he said.
You know that.
What he said. No, absolutely. 100% could not agree more.
All right, so there we have it. All right, well, we've destroyed an hour, and I'm going to let you go sit in front of the fan for a moment. And by the way, just Lauren is a trooper for even showing up here today. Have a lot going on at home, and truly appreciate your time, effort, and energy. Love having you on.
Thank
we will
you.
do this again very soon. Again, follow her on Twitter at StepmomLauren. Also, Saturday. No, it's a week from Saturday. It's not this coming Saturday. I get confused.
I get one more
8th of
Saturday.
July, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Fade the Noise Fantasy on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with Lauren, Jake Seeley, Chris Meany. That'll be a fantastic show, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. And in the meantime, everybody, go to FootballDiehards.com. We just finished the Diehards magazine, so the Pro Forecast and the Diehards are done. You can put in your orders to have those mailed to you. You can get the digital versions of those. Use the promo code Diehards for a 15% discount. That's a good discount, people. Don't mess around. It gets you access to the website into the season. And I will be reaching out to some of you. We have the Scott Fishbowl 13 mock draft. I knew Mr. Scampers would be up for some obfuscating chicanery. I love it when he does that. I like when my cats speak in big words. So there we have it. Put your name down in the chat. I'll try and hunt you down on the Twitter and get you the links in there. And Lauren, thank you so much again. Really appreciate you. We'll do this again really soon.
Absolutely not a problem. And for anyone wondering, my husband just had rotator cuff surgery. So literally right before I came on, I was like, yeah, I just had to put my husband to bed for a nap. Like, cause it's been a day and it was like, there was complications in surgery. So I don't know what my own name is right now. So I'm glad you introduced me because I don't know where I am or what I'm doing.
You are a trooper, and we appreciate you, and we will see you all later. And I appreciate you out there in the chat. I know you have a lot of choices out there to consume a lot of content. I'm glad you consume us. Thank you very much. Love you all. Goodbye.